Hello everyone. This is Double Tap, aka Matt Parker, and this is the second webinar that I've done this year for the class of 2017 on the Pacific Crest Trail Water Report. It's about 19 slides. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on questions. It's a real relaxed format. Anyone can chime in at any second. If they have a question, please don't be shy. I like this to be an interactive forum, because I'm sure if you have a question, most of the other people on the line probably have that same question. They can learn from the answer. So you can either ask, the audio, or in Meeting Burner, there is this little chat box down here in the left-hand corner, and then there's this Q&A box, which I think are linked to each other. So I'll be going back and forth during the presentation because I can't see the questions while I'm presenting, and we'll just jump right into it. All right, so a few basics about the water report. So you can download this presentation files at www.pctwater.com, which is the main website. It's pretty easy to find if you just go over to that website, which is right here. Up in the right-hand corner, we have the download. It's just a PDF file, so it's easy to find. I'm recording this right now, and we'll upload it to YouTube and provide a link for that later. And we'll also have a link on the main water report page here to that video. So if you miss something, don't worry. In terms of how this works, it's very, very straightforward. Basically, the water report is updated by you guys. So when you're out there on the trail, and anytime you get cell phone signal, if you can send us updates, that'd be great. Every year there's a few people who go, hey, the source hasn't been updated in like a week, what's going on? Well, that's because we haven't received an update in a week on that particular water source. So the main point here is the report's only as good as the updates that you guys are sending in, so you're really the most important ones out there giving us the information. It's maintained by Half Mile and myself, Double Tap, and I'm sure everyone knows who Half Mile is, as you're probably using his maps for the PCT. Between peak hiking season, which is April through November, we will be updating the report multiple times a day. And that's important for the SOBOs because often the SOBOs think that we stop updating it, come September when all the NOBOs are finished. Well, that's not true. We go all the way through November. And that could be pretty challenging in Southern California for SOBOs. So, if you're a SOBO and you're out there, please send us updates. It's really important for all the SOBOs to get that information later in the year. The way it works is you just send us either an email at water@pctwater.com. You can text us at this number or call the same number and with the information. And what would be very helpful for us is if you can include the half-mile waypoints or the mileage points. So you could say, mile 830, or you can say, WR001. And then also the date that you're at that water source. That gives us all the information we need. Sometimes we get hikers who send in a report saying, hey, I hiked 100 miles this past week, and here's the updates. But they don't give us the dates on when they are at each source, so we kind of have to extrapolate ourselves. But if you can provide the dates and the mileage points, that'd be really helpful. A couple of new things this year. Well, actually some history. So the water report was actually started and maintained by a gentleman named Azabat, which actually stood for Blind Azabat. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2012, and Half Mile started maintaining the water report after that. I met Half Mile on my through hike in 2014 and offered my help, and for the last 2 years, I've been helping him out on that. So we tag team it. Between the two of us, we keep it updated multiple times daily during the peak hiking seasons. We removed the HTML format on the website from last year. Primarily, Google made some format changes, which really screwed up the way it was coming through. So PDF is still available, and I'll show you how it works. Basically, you come into the website here, and let's say you want to look at the first section, which we classified as Campo to Idlewild. You just click on the link. You can open up the PDF. On your cell phone, if you have a PDF reader, it'll open up, and the report comes right up. And I'll go through the report here in a second and kind of explain it. It's pretty self-explanatory. And we also created a Facebook page last year. I started around May or so. I just wanted to give people another avenue to submit information, not only for water but for fire updates. We had a lot of fires on the trail last year, and was trying to kind of centralize all dearth of information that's out there, especially when it comes to fire closures and updates on fires, because that changes on a daily, sometimes hourly basis. So if you just go to this link, it takes you right to our PCT Water and Fire Update group. I'm a little bit of a Facebook novice, so I haven't figured out how to automatically let people join. So I have to approve everyone who asks, but I always approve it. And I usually get to it within 24 hours of the invitation request. So we do ask that when you're submitting reports to us that you try to use either the Facebook page, the email, or text or call these numbers. That will ensure that either Half Mile or myself gets to it as fast as possible. I'm friends with a lot of you guys on Facebook, and sometimes people just send me updates, like through Facebook Messenger. Well, in my day job, I travel a lot for work, and I don't always get to stuff, until maybe later at night. So if you send it to one of these 4 avenues, that'll ensure that one of us gets to it as fast as possible, and more importantly, we get it uploaded to the report. So you're seeing the most current and accurate information. We'll talk more about water caches here on a further slide, and we also have a PCT Water Twitter account, which will kind of show up. I'll show you where it's at. Shows up on the right-hand side of the Water Report main webpage. So let's talk a little bit about what it looks like, and basically we'll just do this real time. We'll go down and click on Campo to Idlewild. And one of the things we changed a few years ago is, we broke out the sections. We actually have 6 sections now. And it's the entire trail except for the Sierra. And just because there's really no need to have a water report in the Sierra, especially this year, you can pretty much walk and hold out your Gatorade bottle or your Smart Water bottle and have water just cascade into it. So no need for that. But if you want to see what's the latest from Campo to Idlewild, pull down the report. Make this a little bigger so everyone can see it. And the most important, or one of the first things that I would look for, is in this upper right-hand corner, which tells you the last time either Half Mile or myself updated it. And you can see, actually, well, this is from 2 days ago, so it's not peak hiking season yet, so we're not doing it daily, but I'm starting to amp that up because there's actually a lot of people out there on the trail right now, which is a bit surprising to me. But anyways, that'll tell you, when we last updated it. And it's pretty easy to use. Like you come down here and the first one here says, okay, this is map A1, this is all reference to Half Mile's maps. So every data point there, every mileage point, waypoint is all reference to his maps. So basically his California Section A1 map, mile 1.2, which he calls WR001. There's a juvenile ranch facility with a water spigot. And as of March 2nd, Mr. Clean reports that the water is on. Pretty straightforward. When you send in the reports, if you give us a name to reference, a lot of people use their trail names. If you don't have a trail name, you can send us your first name. We just like to put, some credit on there to let people know that, who submitted the information. Otherwise, it just gets put up as unnamed. One of the things that we started doing a few years ago, you'll see some of these are in blue. And these are to highlight to the hikers, these are what we consider pretty reliable water sources. And, over the years, we've seen them operating or, having water almost the entire season. So it's just another color code to kind of help you plan your water management. It's daunting at first to think about water, especially in Southern California. And, you probably heard all these horror stories about really long waterless stretches. And there are some pretty long stretches, but it's very doable. And once you get out there and you're out there for a few days or even a week, you kind of get an idea of what your body needs water-wise. Although I highly recommend that, for any, new hikers, to go on a couple of 3 or 4 day trips before you actually start this trek, just to get an idea for all your gear and also, what you kind of need water-wise. Everyone's a little different in terms of how many liters they need, per mile or how many miles they can get out of a liter. And we will also put fire information on here when a fire pops up, if there's any trail closure information. It's primarily for water, but anytime there's something else important, we like to put it up here to try and minimize how many sources you guys have to go to get information. We'll see if there's any questions. Nope. Okay. Oh, looks like there's a question. What was that Facebook group name again? I'm having trouble finding it. So the name of the page, if you go on Facebook, and where'd it go? Just type in PCT Water and Fire Update Group. It should find it automatically. And if not, you can always go back to the presentation and download it from the PCT Water website, and here's the link right here that you can click on. Okay, so let's delete that one. So let's talk a little bit about water caches. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing never rely on water caches, but it's a very true statement. There's really only one water cache on the entire PCT, which is in the next slide, called the Third Gate Water Cache at mile 91, that we feel confident that it's 100% maintained. It's been maintained by a group of awesome trail angels for many, many years, and it's incredible how much they take up there. But for the rest of the water caches, you really have to plan for the worst. You know, the worst thing you can do is say, hey, I got a 20-mile waterless stretch in front of me, which you will have in Section F, California, and count on a water cache at, say, Bird Spring Pass. And so let's say you get there and it's, you know, there's a lot of empty water bottles. Well, you know, that could be a pretty dire situation. So you kind of have, they're nice to have. You know, except for the Third Gate Water Cache, you have to assume they're going to be empty. And the reason we say this is because there's been such an increase in hikers in the last 4 years that you just don't know. We've seen, you know, 100-gallon water caches be depleted within 24 hours easily. So you just can't count on them, unfortunately. And to highlight that point, here are some numbers from that Third Gate Water Cache. And what's really interesting about this is this goes back to 2012, and we actually have some data already from 2017. And you can see in this bottom row total gallons used. So in 2012, 737. Last year it went up to 1,600 gallons. So, you know, it doubled already in 4 years. I have no idea what it's going to be like this year, but I imagine it's going to be, you know, above 1,600. The problem with this cache is that it kind of trains hikers to think all caches are like it, because it's pretty early in the trip at mile 91. But really, there's no other cache like it on the trail, so don't count on others being like it. One other important note: they asked for no campfires at the Third Gate Water Cache. So there is plenty of camping there. So a lot of people camp there, including myself. And they asked just please no campfires. It's a fire hazard. To give you an idea of what some of these, you know, sources look like, they range all over the place. You can see here, Lower Morse Meadow, it's like a tub. You know, here's a big spring-fed circular tub. This is part of an Oak Spring, a really important water source in California Section F. It's all over the map in terms of what you're looking for. I think I heard, let's see, was there a question? No, okay, no, got an update on my water page. So, especially in Southern California, I recommend, my personal preference is that I treat everything in Southern California, and treat all the water sources at least. And here's a picture of Barrel Spring, which is a very important water source at mile 101. And this is actually above the tub. So when you get to Barrel Spring, there's a really nice open concrete tub, and the water usually looks pretty clean inside of it. But the water is actually coming from above it, and gravity is forcing it down into this tub. And 1 year, as you can see here in 2015, I have no idea what this thing is floating in it, but this is where the water was coming from. So just because you see what you think is a clean water source, it doesn't mean it's necessarily clean. And I highly recommend to treat everything in the Southern California section. Let's see, do we have any questions? Nope. Okay. So this slide highlights what we consider to be the longest waterless stretches on the PCT. But right off the bat, you're hit with a 19, 20-mile waterless stretch from the border to Lake Morena, and this causes some issues for hikers, and for many reasons. One, you have this mindset that you want to camp near running water. It just makes life a lot easier for a variety of reasons. And so a lot of people try to do 19 to 20 miles on that first day. And unless you're in really good shape and you've been out there doing practice hikes with a full pack on, that's a shock to the system for your body. And every year, someone needs to get rescued down the Hauser Canyon area, or sometimes even helicoptered out because they just don't have enough energy and there's no water. Now, Southern California's gotten a lot of water this winter, but who knows what it's going to be like when you guys start hiking. You have to assume that those first 19 miles is going to be dry. A lot of people will camp at Hauser Canyon the first night, especially if it's running at mile 15, so it can be a really crowded campsite. And one thing I recommend to hikers is don't be afraid to dry camp, especially if you like more solitude at night. If you come to a water source where there's a campsite, there's going to be a lot of hikers staying there that night. You can water up there with a few liters, hike a mile or two out, and you can always find camping off the trail, and then you can have the whole area to yourself. But long story short, don't try to do all this in the first day. We just see a lot of people getting into trouble trying that approach. And I've seen a lot of hikers that actually have to get off the trail at Lake Morena, and then through hike is done after a day, which is pretty unfortunate. The next section near Mount San Jacinto in Section B, it's a 20-mile waterless stretch. It's a little easier for no-bows because most of it's downhill, but it's about an 8,000-foot drop down into the Cabazon area. And there's a very reliable water source at Snow Creek. It's actually a faucet that shoots water up in the air, which proves to be challenging because it's usually windy there and it's blowing water all over the place, but you can get it. For Sobos, though, you got an 8,000-foot climb from that faucet up to the flanks, almost near the summit of Mount San Jacinto, so that can be pretty challenging. And at Cajon Pass, Highway 15, where the infamous McDonald's is, where you'll probably spend $25 worth of food on McDonald's in one sitting. To me, this is actually one of the most challenging sections because you have 23 miles from I-15 and a 6,000-foot climb up to Guppy Spring, which most years is very reliable. However, last year it went dry many times, which was quite surprising. Now, my theory on that is we've had 5 years of drought until this winter in California, so that probably affected it. And with all the water Southern California is getting right now, I think Guppy will be a fairly reliable source. However, always check the water report whenever you get cell phone coverage, so you have the latest updates. And I also recommend to print out a hard copy whenever you can, because things happen to cell phones. Sometimes they fail. I knew a hiker in 2014 who got into the Deep Creek hot spring with his cell phone in his pocket. He forgot it was there, and his cell phone was fried, and he had no hard copy maps. So it's always a good idea to carry them, and it doesn't weigh that much. Next section, this is in California, Section E. This is the infamous Mojave section, which you probably hear a lot of horror stories about. It's not that bad. You just got to plan for it. It's pretty flat, which helps, but it can be really hot, and it is 24 miles between the hiker towns and Tyler Horse. So you just got to plan accordingly and get ready to carry a lot of water. Section F, I have 2 slides on this, so I'll spend more time on that later because to me, Section F is the most challenging in terms of water management for the entire trail. But then the last 2 sections here kind of catch people by surprise because it's nowhere near Southern California. And Hat Creek Rim, you're in Northern California at this point, past the Sierra. And then Crater Lake Rim to Thielsen Creek is in Southern Oregon. So there are some pretty long waterless stretches after Southern Cal. This one's 29 miles. This one's 26 miles. What's nice about the Hat Creek Rim is last year we got a lot of reports on this Lost Creek Spring source at mile 1383, and it seems to be really reliable. It's off trail, and it can be a little steep from what I've understood. I've never been down there myself, but a lot of people went down there, and it never was reported dry. And that's key because Hat Creek Rim is a section that most hikers, including myself, we hike at night, because it's very exposed and it's really hot because you're there in the July time frame if you're a no-bow. The last big one from the Crater Lake Rim, the visitor center has water to Thielsen Creek. That's 26 miles of no water. So just kind of plan accordingly. Let's see, do we have any questions? We got a question. See, Alex asks, water filters such as the Sawyer are good enough filter water with a dead carcass? Good question. You know, I've never used the Sawyer squeeze myself. I'm an Aquamira guy, so actually I think the Sawyer squeeze would be good if you happen to see a dead carcass, because, I don't know, just from a visual standpoint, that would make me think it's a lot better. You know, if you see a dead carcass and you have to use that water, I would filter it a couple of times just to be safe. I know it's kind of a pain in the butt with a squeeze because you have to do a lot of work, but you know, the more you can treat it, the more you can filter it, the better off you're going to be. But the thing is, a lot of times you won't see that dead carcass. I've actually never seen a dead carcass in these things, but you know, per my comment on Barrel Spring, a lot of times you're not seeing the actual source; you're just seeing where it drains out into. Let's see. Delete that. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about sections A and F in California, because these are the two challenging ones. I've already, you know, talked a lot about the first 20-mile stretch to Lake Morena. So, you know, just key point there is don't overextend yourself. You know, my personal preference in the 2 years I've hiked, I started out with about, you know, 5 to 6 liters from the border. I err on the side of caution, so I was probably more towards 6 liters because I've actually gotten dehydrated before, not on the PCT but on another trip, and it's a pretty horrendous feeling. So if you can avoid it, I highly recommend to avoid it. But all these here, I'm not going to go through each of them. This just kind of highlights the reliable water sources in Section A, and you can see the mile points with the distances in between. So it can be, you know, right off the bat, you have to think about water management. Some important changes from last year. Mile 68 at Rodriguez Spur Fire Tank. This is a really important source. And last year, it got damaged. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but it's dripping a bit, and couple that with the drought for the last 5 years, it went dry multiple times. And that means you don't have anything between miles, you know, 49 and 77. So that's a pretty long stretch. I think it'll be better this year, and reports so far in 2017 have been good, but, you know, just check the water report whenever you can to make sure you have the most updated information. Mile 77, this is at Scissors Crossing. So the last couple of years, a cache was not maintained. However, we're getting indications that there will be a gentleman maintaining it, although I haven't gotten a lot of updates on it yet. So when you guys are out and you come to Scissors Crossing, you know, please send us updates, because if we see that being maintained regularly, we'll start adding that to the report. However, if you get there and there's no water and you need water, you can hitch to the west at Julian on Highway 78. It's a pretty well-traveled road, so it shouldn't take too long to get a hitch, but with hitching, you never know. Or you can go 4 miles south to Stagecoach Trails RV Park, which I hear is actually pretty nice. You can get water there, and they have some other amenities. I talked about the third gate cache at mile 91, because basically between Scissors Crossing and Barrel Spring, that's a 24-mile waterless stretch through the San Felipe Hills, which to me is one of the hottest sections of trail, and there's no shade. You're going in and out of these, you know, just rock canyons, and the sun's on you the entire time in the middle of the day. So that third gate water cache is in a very strategically located place, and it's very reliable. And last but not least, Warner Springs Resource Center. I actually have a slide on that later. This is seems like every year they amp it up more and more in terms of what they offer through hikers. So it's a great place to stop. It's right at the end of Section A. You can get, you know, a nice meal, laundry. They have computers there, so, you know, you can get online and update your blogs, you know, whatever you guys want to do. Let's see. I'm throwing a lot of information. Just want to make sure getting all your questions answered. Oh, here we go. Sam says a Sawyer squeeze should stop every bacteria. Viruses, no. Viruses shouldn't be present in North America. Okay, so that's in reference to Alex's question earlier. Thank you, Sam. So Section F, this is the bear, for lack of better words. Basically, when you get to Tehachapi, you know, a lot of people will hitch into Tehachapi, pick up a resupply box, stay there for a few days, take a zero. It's a great place to do that. And then you start Section F. And a lot of people will start at Tehachapi Willow Springs Road, which is actually still in Section E, technically. And that adds another 8 miles to the first water source at 583, which is Golden Oak Spring. Now, Golden Oak Spring is it's somewhat reliable. It was damaged a few years ago, but some very nice trail angels went there and repaired it. However, it's a slow drip. There's a big tub there that has nasty water. The couple of years I've been up there, if you go past the tub, there's usually a trickle coming down the side of the hill, which is very clean. It just takes a long time. So if you're in what we call the herd, with the majority of the bonobos, there can be a line, and you could be waiting there quite some time just to get, your next 3 or 4 liters, or 4, 5, or 6, depending on how much you need. Because the next reliable source after 583 Golden Oaks is Robinbird Spring. Now, Robinbird's a very reliable source. I've never heard of it going dry. Same thing at 609 with Landers Camp, a very reliable source. But starting from Landers, you have a potential 42-mile waterless stretch if you don't get off the PCT. At mile 620, there's Willow Spring, but this is it's actually 3.2 miles round trip off trail. A fairly reliable source, although last year it went dry a few times, but I think that's more because of the drought. And just to kind of go into a little more detail here, you can kind of see, so if Golden Oak Spring at 583 is not running, then you have a 35-mile waterless stretch if you start from Highway 58, the official start of Section F. If you start at Tehachapi Willow Springs Road, which a lot of people do because that's an easier road to hitch into Tehachapi on, then you have a 44-mile waterless stretch if Golden Oaks is not running. So it's really important to check the status of Golden Oak Springs when you're in Tehachapi. I think it'll be fairly reliable this year, however. At least I hope it will be. But when you're doing your water management strategy, you're probably picking up a theme here. You have to assume the worst. And say, okay, I have to assume that there's going to be this long stretch before I get my next water. And that really comes, that kind of mindset really comes into play here at mile 609, Landers Campground Spring, a very reliable source. And you have to look at, okay, from Landers at 609, my next potential water is 651. That's the end of Section F at Walker Pass. Now, there are a few options in between. However, Willow Spring, probably the most reliable one, is, remember, 3.2 miles round trip off the PCT, and it went dry a few times last year. There have been some water caches maintained in the past at mile 616, Kelso Valley Road. However, both years I hiked, it was bone dry. It was just full of empty, water bottles. There is a very nice trail angel who maintains a cache at Bird Spring Pass in May only, just May. However, this is that 100-gallon cache that I alluded to earlier that went dry within 24 hours. So the main point I'm trying to get across there is when you get to mile 609, you have a pretty big decision point to make, and how much water am I going to carry? And the way I would approach it is to assume that there's nothing between 609 and 651. So how much water do you need to go 42 miles? For myself, I started off with 7 liters, which sucked, but I knew I could get 42 miles on 7 liters, and I did, so it all worked out. Okay, so I'm throwing a lot of information at you guys. Let me see if there's any questions. Nope, no questions. All right. Okay, so a little information about snow in Southern California. I know you guys are interested about the Sierra, and the next slide about that, but a lot of people don't realize you can run into a significant amount of snow in Southern California, and we've highlighted four areas in particular here. So Mount Laguna, which is about 50 miles in, it's very common to get snow on top of that mountain that the system moves in, which is very common in the April time frame. Mount San Jacinto always has snow on Fuller Ridge, which is the north side of the mountain, and that's where you start that 8,000-foot decline down into the Cabazon Pass area. Now, you can get snowstorms, significant snowstorms, up in Idlewild, which is right on the flanks of Mount San Jacinto, anytime before Mother's Day in early May. So a lot of hikers Idlewild is their first zero. It's a great place to take a zero. It's a really small, neat little mountain town. It's got all the amenities you can need. And more importantly, there's even an outfitters there. So if by some chance you do get hit by a storm, and you want to go up afterwards and you think you might need an ice axe or indoor microspikes, you can buy it there at the outfitters. But it's important to know that it can be a dangerous section, and not to try and scare you, but there was a PCT hiker who did pass away, unfortunately, in 2005. He got stuck up there during a snowstorm. So, don't go up the Devil Slide Trail, which is the trail to the PCT from Idlewild, if a storm is hitting. It's just not a wise move. Big Bear, north of there in Section C, that's around 8,000, 9,000 feet, so you can't get snow there. And then in Mount Baden-Powell, in the mountain range just north of Los Angeles here, can get snow. But what's nice about this section is if there's a lot of snow, the trail crosses Highway 2 multiple times. I think it's like 7 times. And so technically you could just walk on the highway, and they close it down if it gets a lot of snow, so you don't have to worry about car traffic. Let's see. We got a question. See, Alex asked, bladder recommendations for carrying 7 liters, 7 in all caps. Yeah, I feel your pain on that one. Well, everyone's different. For myself, I carry a 3-liter bladder in my backpack, and I also I have a Mountain Laurel Designs Prophet, which you can order a bladder pocket, if you will, so that it keeps the bladder against my back as opposed to falling down at the bottom of my pack and getting scrunched up, which to me is the biggest cause of bladders getting punctured. But I had 3 liters there, and then I carried 4 liters, 4 different Gatorade bottles, where they're actually just below a liter, and you're able to put Gatorade bottles all over the place on your pack. But everyone's different, You got to get out there and test out your gear and make sure it works right for you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Sierra snow. Well, a lot of information here, but the main point is these dark blue lines. That's this year, 2017. The light blue is our average, and you got the north, central, and southern sections of Sierra here. What's in the kind of the lighter or the not so thick blue line below, that's the last year, 2014, 15 time frame. You could see very low, right? And pretty much the last 5 years have all looked about like that. The red line is our wettest winter on recorded history in 1982 and 83. So you can see as of mid-February, we're on track to have, if not the wettest winter, on par with the wettest winter. I live in California. I'm in the Bay Area, and it's been quite a wet winter. We haven't had a significant storm in a couple weeks, though, so that's a good sign. However, there's already so much snow up there that you guys are going to run into it regardless. And if I were hiking northbound this year, I would actually consider maybe starting in early May, just to minimize the amount of snow. Now the problem with that is you guys have to worry about Washington snow, which can start any time in September. So the clock is already ticking, and your season is going to get a little compressed. For you guys who are starting earlier, the silver lining there is it gives you more time to get to the Sierra, and your daily mileage will go down significantly when you're dealing with snow, especially when you get to Kings Canyon National Park, where you're going over pretty high pass every day. And for anyone who's interested, I have a whole other presentation on Sierra passes and your strategy for hitting those, what time of day, how to hit them, and stuff like that, because that's a whole other ball of wax. Okay, any questions? Nope. Another option, and this actually happened last year because there was a system that moved through right when the herd was hitting the southern Sierra, is you can skip it and come back and do it later on in the trip. However, logistically that proves to be a little more challenging, albeit very doable. But another silver lining of doing the Sierra when there's snow in it, it makes for tremendous photo opportunities. But this is where you're going to get used to having your feet wet a lot of the day. Especially most of you and ventilate. That's what I do. And for those of you guys who are a little concerned about that, I'm like, I don't want to get my feet wet. You get used to it pretty quickly, actually. It's funny what you get used to if you have to deal with it on a daily basis. So a few notes about closures. Actually, some really good news recently. Some closures that have been in place for many years are now open. However, the longest one is still closed, and that's in the Mountain Fire. This is just south of Idlewild in California, Section B. There's a fire, I think it was in 2013, and it just really damaged the trail a lot, and so it's still closed from 166.5 to 177.3. Every year, the closure gets, lower and lower, but it's still in place, and this is one where every year they're checking hikers, and if they catch you out there, I've heard stories of hikers getting fined a lot of money, so beware. This is one probably not to toy with. Half Mile has an alternate map, so if you want to keep a continuous footpath, go to this link and download it. It also avoids having to road hike on Highway 243 into Idlewild, which is very, very winding, very narrow, a lot of blind curves. Many hikers hike it, but it's not exactly the safest road to hike on the side of. In California Section C, we had a pretty big fire there last year. Actually, we had multiple big fires in Sections C and D. But it's open again, which is good. However, the last information I got is there's no camping. Camping is not allowed in the burn area, and this is where it gets a little vague, which is about 4 miles of the PCT, somewhere between 233 and 252. I don't know exactly where, but that's the latest information. So just kind of keep that in mind. There's going to be a 4-mile stretch in there where you can't camp. The endangered species closure in Section D, California, that's been in place for many years. I would recommend to go to Half Mile's PCT page. He's got a lot of great detour maps for Section D. There's many of them there, not only for the endangered species, but also for Poodle Dog Bush, which we'll talk about here in a second. But don't skip this section. It might be a lot of road hiking, but it's actually a beautiful section, in my opinion. The Sand Fire, this was a fire last year also in California Section D towards the end. So from miles 430 to 444, it's closed as of now. Maybe they'll get it open by the time you guys hit there. It's really TBD at this point. But the best news that we got, and this is very recent, just this week, we found out that the Powerhouse Fire closure in California Section E is now open again. So for the last 3 years, there's been a pretty nasty road walk there for a detour, and you don't have to worry about that anymore. So that's good news. One thing I recommend when you get into town and when you get cell signal, which strangely enough, you get a lot of cell signal in the Southern California section on the trail. But go to the PCTA.org Trails and Conditions page. And for you guys who have never seen it before, it looks like this. And they'll have, all the latest information on this. And Half Mile and I work very closely with these guys during peak hiking season to make sure we have the most updated information on trail closures for you. Okay. Questions? 2 questions. Let's see. Alex says, where can we find the CS Snow presentation? So Alex, I think you and I are friends on Facebook. Send me a message and I'll email it to you or send it to you via Facebook, and I'll be more than happy to walk it through with you on the phone if you want. Let's see, and assuming navigation skills and snow travel skills are up to date, what difference does 5 feet of snow make compared to 50? Good question. I don't know. To me, I would rather be on 50 compared to 5, because with 5, there's going to be rock underneath that you could potentially post hole through. And I think you said you were starting in late March, early April, Alex. So, that might actually work to your benefit. I think for you, though, it's going to mean longer mileage of snowfields to go through, as opposed to like at Muir Pass, which is just infamous for catching snow even during drought years. That's like a 5-7 mile stretch of snow during a drought year. By the time you get up there, that it could easily be 10 to 15 miles of snow. I'm not a snow expert, but there's a guy on Facebook, I believe his name is Ned Tibbetts. He does a lot of snow preparation classes, and I recommend you get in touch with him, and he's more of a snow expert. see, so delete that. See, Melanie asks, where can we find the presentation on the passes? Okay, same response, Melanie. You can send me an email to the PCT Water email address with your information. I can send it to you, or you can just friend me on Facebook, and I can email it that way. You just type in Matt Parker double tap, and you should be able to find me on Facebook. The closures is an interesting topic. The PCT is a living organism. Every year it changes. Every year there's new closures. Every year there's new fires. It's a very difficult trail to hike the entire length of the official PCT, and I know, and that's important to people. It's important to me. And what I tell people is, try to keep a continuous footpath, because there's going to be sections like this mountain fire section. You can't do the official PCT there. I mean, you can try, but we don't recommend that because, well, A, it's illegal, and B, if you get caught, you're going to be paying a pretty hefty fine. But there's always alternates. It might involve some road walking. If you want to keep a continuous footpath, it's doable, unless a huge fire pops up and closes a big section of trail right before you get to it. Just a few other items of information. I alluded to the Warner Springs Community Center at mile 109, and I put the website here. Every year they add more and more amenities, so it's a great place, and they're really great people. At mile 211, which is the start of California Section C, there used to be a trail angel there called Ziggy and the Bear, a.k.a. Whitewater Hiker House, and they are closed indefinitely. Which is unfortunate because it was a great place to stop, and they're really nice people, but I think they decided it was time for a change, and it's a lot of work that these trail angels go through, especially with the amount of hikers increasing every year. So please be very thankful to them when anyone helps you out on the trail. And you're going to run into a lot of trail angels. There's a lot of really great people out there. Hiker Heaven, which is the Softleys, run by Donna Softley and her husband, is a great place to stop. That place is run like a machine. They got every amenity you could possibly need. Printers to print out the water report. You can send your resupply box there. You can do laundry. You can stay the night there. It's just a really great place to stop at. However, Donna is implementing some new policies this year, and if you click on this link, it will take you there. Just to kind of give you the overview, from May 20, 21st, 27th, 29th, and 3rd through the 4th of June, she will be screening for permits. She can only handle so many hikers a day, and it's tough to give everyone the same experience once it gets over 50 hikers a day. So she's implemented that this year. And she's also asked that if you can't arrive between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m., to please camp at Vasquez Rocks County Park or at the KOA. And this is, out of respect for her neighbors, because it is a residential area. One big change from last year, however, is Lassen National Park, which is in Northern California here at mile 1344. They've implemented a new rule this year that if you camp in the park, overnight, that you have to have a bear canister. And this logistically can prove to be, pretty troublesome, because usually people ship their bear canisters to themselves at Kennedy Meadows, right in the Southern Sierra section. And by the time you get to Northern Kennedy Meadows or Lake Tahoe, you're shipping the thing back because it's not legally required anymore. One way around this is you just don't camp in Lassen. It's a 19-mile stretch, so it's nothing to scoff at. But by that time in your hike, you can do 19 miles no problem. And elevation gain-wise, that's not too bad of an area, so you could blast through it and not have to camp in Lassen. But if you do, you gotta have a bear canister. Let's see, any questions? We got two more. Oh, disregard last question. All right. All right. I will disregard. All right. Let's see. Close this window. So I don't know how much you guys know about Poodle Dog Bush. I'd never heard of it until I started planning my hike. But it's a pretty nasty bush, and basically it kind of acts like poison oak, although it's a different mechanism. And this is all over California Section C and D. I've seen it as far as Section G, though, although it's not that much. This is what it looks like. This is actually taken from the first page of half-mile Section D maps. It's a really big bush, kind of pretty, and it smells like marijuana. So if you're hiking up the trail and all of a sudden you get a strong, whiff of weed, it's either a couple of hikers token up, or it's or it's this bush, just don't rub up against it. But the reason I bring this up is last year we had so many fires near the LA area that I just wanted to highlight the sections to really be on the lookout for it, because the way this bush works is that the seeds lie dormant until a big fire comes through, and somehow that incubates it and starts the growing process. And it ranges anywhere from like a year to 2 years after a big fire that this bush will just pop up all over the place. So when you're out there, especially in these sections, just be on the lookout for it. And if you come to a section of trail where it's all over the trail and it's really hard to get around, send us a note at the water report so we can add a note to the report for other hikers to see. Let's see, and that's basically it. Pretty straightforward, a lot of information. Let me see if you have any other questions here. I don't see any. All right. So, yeah, if there's no other questions, I will go ahead and close out the presentation here. You guys are pretty shy. Oh, here we go. I was about to say you're shy. Oh, bear canister versus hangback. Everyone's different. I've never hung a bag myself, but and you also have to worry about the legalities of it. Like in the national parks in the Sierra, Kings Canyon, Sequoia, Yosemite, it's illegal to hang a bag. You have to have a bear canister. And I've heard, like getting into Yosemite when you cross over Donahue Pass, that there are rangers checking for it. Now, typically they don't ask you to explode your pack, which would be a pain in the ass, especially for guys like me who keep my bear canister at the bottom of my pack. But they want to be able to feel it through your pack. So, when you have it there, make sure it's easy for them to kind of, touch it and feel that hard structure on your backpack. And I think with every year, Yosemite is getting more and more strict on that. So beware. Let's see. Matt says, thank you. No problem. Glad to help. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and stop recording here, and it takes a couple hours for Meeting Burner to process the video, but we'll get the live video up on YouTube and on the PCT Water presentation page, our water report page. Feel free to send us any questions. We're more than happy to help, and more importantly, send updates while you're out there. It's a surprisingly low number of hikers who send us updates, considering how many people are on the trail. Every year we get, I would say 15 to 20 people who are, very good about sending us reports at every, possible spot. But we like to see that number go up, because the more updates we get, the more current it's going to be for you guys and the safer it's going to be for you. So send us updates whenever you can. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. And, I may do another one of these next week just to make sure I'm hitting everyone's time zones. I did it at this time for more for our international hikers, because the last one I did was at 7 p.m. Pacific time at night, which didn't work out for Europeans so much. So everyone, have a great time out on the trail. Have fun. It's a life-changing experience. I'm jealous. I wish I could be out there with you. And maybe I'll see you guys when I'm doing some trail magic around Section B in California. All right, take care, everyone.